But the last game we're talking about is a couple teams who have screwed up this year. Number 14, Utah, at number 18, USC, 8 p.m. Eastern time on Fox. The storyline, just like it was for the last game we talked about, is will this finally be the week, Dalton, that Cameron Rising suits up? Because he has yet to play in the first 6 games of the season. He actually revealed pretty recently that he didn't just suffer a torn ACL in the Rose Bowl. He suffered a torn ACL, MCL, meniscus, and MPFL, which I'd never even heard of before, in that Rose Bowl loss to Penn State over 9 months ago. And it's pretty interesting because, in our interview with Kyle Whittingham, which you can check out, the Utah head coach, I asked him about Cam Rising. This is in the preseason. I asked him, hey, is he going to be able to go? And he says, hey, I think he's 50-50 for the season opener. Now it's week 8. Now it's not week 1 anymore. This is 7 weeks later, and this guy still hasn't played. Now Whittingham is even talking about the potential of Rising taking a medical red shirt and coming back for his 7th season where they're in the Big 12 next year. Maybe they can win the Big 12. So he might not play at all this year at all. But listen, last year Utah beat USC twice. They're the only reason why USC was not in the college football playoff. Right now, though, Utah has the 4th worst offensive grade on passing plays this season. So when you're facing Caleb Williams, man, you kind of need Cam Rising back more than ever in this game. And I think that's a pretty big factor is whether or not Rising will finally be able to go in this game.
Yeah, big time. And actually, to be honest with you, I have to give Utah a lot of credit. I mean, they've beaten some darn good teams. Yeah, they lost to Oregon State, who is just as physical as the ones. They're really the one team in the Pac-12 that's just as physical as they are. Nate Johnson just trying to cobble together a passing game. They run the ball. They play great defense. They play complementary football. I have to give them a lot of credit with the Rising story being the biggest story of their season, and now he might just sit out the whole way. What they've been able to do, they're not going to win the Pac-12 with their offense, but what they've been able to do anyway with just the rest of their team playing such good complementary football, especially their defense, man, that's just, it's so hard to play defense when your offense isn't good for more than 21. It's so hard. And the fact that they continue, I mean, Iowa, right? Iowa's the same way. It's kind of like that, where you just go, even more credit to them for, are they 5-1 or 6-1, whichever it is right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and even the one loss. I mean, they got caught a couple of times early against Oregon State. It was only 21-7. It is hard to win like that every week, but I got to give them just a ton of credit working through that, because really you look at them without Rising and without Keithy, and you go, well, how do they score, right? And I suppose they're really not scoring, but they're winning anyway, and it's just their defense is just as good as it was last year, if not better, considering the situation. They're in every game, and they're going to be in this one, regardless of. Well, there's plenty of factors that we'll get into here in a second why they're going to be in this one, but they're just dangerous. They're just that team. They're that team that coaches put on tape and they go, oh man, we got to play them this week. Great. Oh boy, yeah. They're just that team. It's I don't want to say annoying, but like they just play such good, solid, sound football that they cause anybody problems.
Oh, absolutely. And Dalton, so last week we mentioned we both picked USC, so we're not going to take credit for picking the right team in that Notre Dame game. But what we will take credit for, and something that I tweeted out, was we kind of called this whole Caleb Williams situation, man, and why he's struggling a little bit more than people realize, especially under pressure this year. So do you think that Utah can make him just as uncomfortable as Notre Dame did in this game?
I think they could. I mean, they did it. They beat him twice last year, so they clearly know something the rest of us don't. I'm going to throw some Caleb Williams stuff at you. All
Please.
Right. In total, actually, I'm going to throw this out there first. For weeks, we were griping about the USC defense, right? They had their best game. By the grading, they gave up 48 points, but 5 turnovers, a kick return, all that stuff. By the grading, that was their best game their defense has played against a Power 5 team. Notre Dame still, I don't know if I've ever seen a team with 251 yards of offense score 48 points.
Yeah.
Notre Dame did nothing spectacular on offense. That was, and they only had the ball for 25 minutes. Look, we're just going to say it. Caleb Williams was the reason they lost that game.
Yep.
Right? Over the last 2 weeks, Arizona, Notre Dame, right? 49 passing grade with 6 turnover-worthy plays. Ooh. This year, under pressure, okay, it didn't get any better in the Notre Dame game. You ready for this? 2 big-time throws, all 13 of his turnover-worthy plays, and a 27.1 passing grade, all right, which there's 116 quarterbacks who've been pressured at least 40 times this year. That is the worst. That is the worst in the country. The worst. In a clean pocket, he's still the 3rd best quarterback in the country. It's Penix, Shedeur, Caleb Williams. He right now, and this is not an exaggeration, is pretty much the worst quarterback in the country under pressure, which makes almost no sense at all. But you see in this Notre Dame game, he's not taking off running as much. I wonder if he's just gassing out, having to run back there so much. The pass protection's starting to crack a little bit. The first 3 weeks of the season, they were second behind Oregon in pass protection. The last 4, they're 50th. They've become a much more average pass protecting team, right? Last week, he was pressured 44% of the time. All right, and the one other thing I noticed on the back end, we talk about the pressure. It's cool. Okay, if you get pressure, you still have to cover somewhat. I found it funny that Notre Dame, and I did not think I would see this at all this year against USC. They played a lot of man coverage last week. And Notre Dame's a great covering team. I go, wow, with all their weapons, that still takes some guts to get back in cover one, right? Basically, cover one, put a spy so Williams doesn't go too far and just, let's go. Notre Dame challenged them. And I go, wow, is this like new or is it just a new – all this – and I noticed something the last 4 weeks. Arizona State, Colorado plays a lot of cover one anyway, Travis Hunter, Deion Sanders, arrogant corner stuff. So – all of a sudden, teams are playing. It's 4 weeks in a row with this. Nobody in the country over the last 4 weeks has seen more man coverage than Caleb Williams. And I never, between his feet and the weapons, Rice and Williams and Branch and whatever else, and especially the running, I never thought I would sit here and say, hey, this team's just lining up one-on-one and playing man across the board against Caleb Williams. On paper, that makes no sense at all. It doesn't. But it's working. Yeah, it's working. In that stretch, right? Actually, this entire season against man coverage, a 61.7 passing grade. Everything you think would not work against Caleb Williams is working. And now they're playing. Now you get a Utah team. Okay, they run the 10th highest percentage of cover one in the country, man to man. Right, one high behind. Man across the board, and if you want to play a spy because Caleb Williams, cool, right? 4-man rush. I told you last week, don't blitz him. Just sit back and wait for something to happen. He's top 10 in the country in time to throw, top 11 somewhere in there. He's going to hold the ball. He wants to find it, and right now under pressure, he's forcing it. Now you've got a Utah team who plays a bunch of this man coverage. I'd have to look into it, but it's probably something that bothered him last year when they played him too. If they're, because Whittingham, just an excellent defensive coach. I want to highlight another guy, too, for Utah. How about Jonah Elliss off of the edge? Yep. All right. It's not, as a crew, they're not the highest graded pass rush team in the country. I think somewhere in the top 30. This guy, I'll tell you something, 4th best grade in the country, 4th best pass rush win rate in the country, 9 sacks, leads the Power 5. This guy's a problem. He's got multiple sacks in 3 straight weeks. This is a formula on defense. Utah's already beaten him twice last year. A lot of man coverage. And especially in a 4-man rush situation, come draft time, this Jonah Elliss, he's going to start flying up boards. I'm going to tell you something. I don't think he's like the most explosive like you talked about James Pierce, right? Being just this explosive speed to power athlete. Jonah Elliss just knows how to rush the passer. He's got moves. He's got counter moves. I'm going to tell you, he uses his hands as good as any player, any defensive lineman in the country. Just inside, outside, spin move. And you talk about hustling, like they talk about like certain guys like the Watt brothers or Aiden Hutchinson, guys like that who hustle late in the play to continue to finish. This dude's a finisher, man. I'm telling you, if they try to block him one-on-one, especially with as kind of mediocre-ish as USC's pass pro has been the last few weeks, they're going to have major issues with Jonah Elliss up front. And I'm telling you, if Caleb Williams if he loses track of him late 5-6 seconds into one of these plays, it was last week and the week before. I think it was last week. He had a strip sack against Cal that really turned the game in Utah's favor. Yeah. He's a problem. I'm telling you, more than any other guy in this Utah defense right now. This dude is a major problem. And if you lose track of him, especially if Caleb Williams is going to hold the ball and he doesn't know where Elliss is at, he's going to have a huge problem, because it won't just be throwing the ball into traffic. Now all of a sudden Elliss is just running you down. I mean, you talk about hustle and just late play, just action. This guy makes it happen.
Yeah. Dude, this is the entire breakdown I wanted to go with too, man, because that really is the big story, is just how insane this transition has been for Caleb Williams under pressure. I mean, he literally lost that game for USC. You actually look at the team stats, USC, I think, outgains them in yards. They outgain them in time of possession. I think they average just about the same amount of yards per play. They have way more first downs than Notre Dame does. The only difference is 5 turnovers for USC, and all 5 of them basically gave Notre Dame the ball deep into USC's own territory. That's why Notre Dame was able to put up 48 points. Caleb Williams, that was probably the first time, not only his college career, it might be the first time in his life that he's ever lost a game for a team, because he obviously he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, was his unbelievable quarterback recruit, has been unbelievable through 2.5 years basically so far in his college career. But that was the first time, man, where it was like, wow, there's issues here. And he had 4 turnover-worthy plays against Notre Dame in that game. That was the most in his career. And you mentioned the under pressure stuff. This isn't like a constant theme for Caleb Williams throughout his career. Last year, Caleb Williams had an 85.5 grade under pressure that led all quarterbacks in the country. He was by far the best quarterback in college football when he was under pressure, because even when you get pressure on him, he dances around, somehow breaks out of the pocket, breaks out of sacks, and finds an open man downfield. This year, he's forcing it, man. He's really forcing it. This year, last year in pressure grade, this year he's 135th in the country. There's only 133 FBS teams, by the way, and he's 135th among qualifying quarterbacks. So 28.3 grade under pressure. Last year, 85.5. So Utah, pretty good pass rushing team overall. Top 20 pass rush win rate. You mentioned Jonah Elliss. He was one of my midseason All-Americans on I think the second or third team with how many sacks he has and how great he is as a pass rush win rate and overall as a pass rusher. Jonah Elliss has been unbelievable. This could be an issue for Caleb Williams in this game. Now, Cam Rising's not playing, so I don't know how much Utah's going to be able to score, especially with how good USC's defense looked last week, even with giving up, quote-unquote, 48 points. But ultimately, Dalton, will Utah get yet another victory over USC? And last year, Utah was the only reason why USC didn't make the college football playoff. They beat them in the regular season, then they beat them in the Pac-12 title game when all USC needed to do was win that game to make the college football playoff. If USC loses this game, they're out once again. So will Utah once again kick USC out of the college football playoff?
Is this game at USC?
It is at USC. You still don't know. You told me pre-show you still don't know who you're picking. Are you still like up in the air?
I think this might be the hardest pick so far this year.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, USC Notre Dame, for as much as we listed off stuff before the game last week, this is hard because Utah still defensively does a lot of things that are going to bother USC. And offense, it's the brand of football they want to play. Man, oh man.
You want me to go first?
You
can think about it.
Yeah, let me see what you got. Okay. I'm telling you, and I know it seems like bad preparation, but this is to me the hardest because I've got one team with such. I mean, the USC is a flawed team, man. I mean, I know this game is going to be close. If this game was in Utah, I'd probably pick Utah. I'm so on the fence. I'm so on it. You know what? I'm just going to do it. You know what? Every blade of grass is the same, right? I'll take Utah for the fun of it. You know what?
Okay.
I think I think they do play a similar brand of football to Notre Dame. And they've got, I mean, between Jonah, Elliss, everything on this, look, what we thought it would be is that everything else on this USC team was going to fall apart. And there was one day where Caleb Williams was going to be ordinary, right? Like 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the rest of the team would let him down. And it flipped. And this is the problem. You know what? Here's what I'm going to go with. This is not a one-off with Caleb Williams.
No, it's not.
This is like 4 weeks of this. Of just, once they got into Pac-12 play, this hero ball thing, very much like Cam Ward, let's just say, kind of the same thing. This hero ball thing is not working. I'll make the Utah case just to get back on the good side of their Twitter fans. If this game slows down a bit and this plays really at the same pace, it's kind of a similar game as last week. Notre Dame's a little better on offense than Utah because they actually have a starting quarterback. But if it's this, I don't think the formula changes even with Rising in there. Look, they want to run the ball. They want to play complementary football. They want to play defense. They want to rush the passer, and they want to play a ton of man coverage. Defensively, Utah can absolutely keep themselves in this game. If they find maybe USC's defense, they played on the grades. They played well last week, right? The point total is kind of deceiving. But maybe you've got a team now in a similar style. If Utah can run the ball, they can win this game. Because we saw 6 weeks of not good USC defense, right? And we saw 1 week of deceptively kind of good, but also, the reason I picked USC last week is I'm not the biggest believer in Hartman, and they're not real explosive, right? So it's one of the least explosive teams they've played. And Utah is in the same. I'm gonna take Utah for the fun of it. I'm gonna go. Let's say they find a way to run the ball, and their defense just kind of does the same thing Notre Dame did. Let's say 24-20 Utah, because this is the hardest one of the year. But their defense is going, regardless of the result. Utah's defense has all the same things Notre Dame does to give USC a ton of problems. I don't know if that'll mean 5 turnovers again. I would bet if Utah's going to win, they're going to need at least 3. But the way Williams is throwing the ball under pressure, it's entirely possible. Because last week, look, Williams had been doing this, and last week was just the first week where Notre Dame caught the interceptions, and the other teams they played just didn't. So good luck, bad luck, all that stuff starts to happen. If Utah can run the ball enough, and let's say they get 3 turnovers, they could win this game. I'll take them 24-20 for the fun of it.
I love it. I'm going with USC in this one only because, we mentioned on last week's show, and we were wrong, honestly. We mentioned what's the minimum USC can score, and we were like 27 probably. Well, they scored 20 against Notre Dame, but also that was, I think, the worst game USC could ever play. It was that game against Notre Dame offensively. I don't know. I still would stick to like 24-27. Like that's probably where I'd say USC's minimum. Utah so far this season, man, they've had 4 games, 4 of their 6 games where they scored 24 or fewer points. 3 of them 20 or fewer. I don't know. Without Rising, Utah's offense has struggled so much. I think USC is going to bounce back and score probably 30 plus, and I just don't think Utah offensively will be able to keep up. So I got 35-24 in this game. I think USC is going to bounce back. They're going to get revenge on Utah. Caleb Williams is going to look better. I do think there's some major issues with USC, but I can't see Utah, especially without Rising, and it looks less and less likely by the week that he's going to play at all this year. I just don't know if they can keep up with Caleb Williams. And I know they scored only 20 points last week. I don't think it's going to happen again, even though Utah's got a great defense. It was in a very hostile environment too at Notre Dame. And he's at home now in USC. I got Caleb Williams in this one. I think USC keeps their playoff hopes alive with a 35-24 victory. But that's what we got for our Week 8 preview. Like I said, this is the 5th straight weekend where we have 4 ranked games, which hasn't happened since 2012.